I have spent my life trying to explain what others call impossible. For most of my career, I believe that slowly and painfully, one anomaly at a time. The air above the ranch has a weight that doesn't belong to this world. It presses against you, humming faintly like a low-frequency vibration that crawls beneath your skin. Even before we power up the instruments, even before a single reading appears on our screens, something out there seems to know we are coming. That morning, the desert stretched in muted shades of red and ochre under the wide Utah sky. Eric Bard stood beside the truck, his face hidden behind polarized lenses, watching the drill. A hollow space under the triangle, perfectly symmetrical, with echoes of metal signatures that shouldn't exist in sedimentary rock. The radar scans the magnetometry, the electrical anomalies. Everything pointed toward an artificial structure buried beneath our feet. "Ready to go?" Thomas asked, breaking my trance. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said. He smiled, though it didn't ground. There shouldn't have been any current. The system was electrically isolated. "Oh, shut it down," I ordered. Now, the operator killed the engine. For a few seconds, the only sound was the dying whine of the drill motor and the wind. Then the monitor flickered. The GPS data began to shift. Our stationary rig appeared to be sliding north toward the mesa. "That can't be right," Thomas said, peering over my shoulder. "We're not moving." I tapped the screen thinking it was a glitch, but the data persisted, showing the rig drifting across the field, climbing the mesa slope and disappearing inside it. The mesa had swallowed our signal. I remember the silence that followed, the kind that doesn't simply mean absence of sound, but the withdrawal of something deeper, some invisible presence retreating into the earth. Eric broke the quiet. "Maybe it's interference from the magnetics." Maybe I said, though I didn't believe it. We rechecked the system, recalibrated the sensors, re-anchored the GPS reference points. Everything was normal, yet the data still showed the rig tunneling through solid rock. That was when the first object appeared in the sky. We didn't see it at first. The high-speed camera did capturing hundreds of frames per second above the triangle. When we reviewed the footage that night, we saw them 6 bright orbs around them like heat ripples bending the air, but colder. "What do you think?" Eric asked. "I think we just opened a door," I said. That was the beginning. Over the next weeks, we drilled again and again. Each time the instruments behaved like frightened animals, readings vanished, then returned in impossible patterns. Once our drill rod snapped cleanly at 40 feet, as if bitten by something unseen. Another time, a static discharge leapt from the casing, leaving a blue scar on the metal. We collected samples, ran spectroscopy isotope analysis. The results made less sense each time. Elements like titanium and scandium appeared in trace concentrations far above natural occurrence, as though alloyed deliberately. The mesa was not what it seemed. Then came the radar scans from Jan Frankie's new GPR unit. The images showed a curved anomaly inside the mesa, 300 feet long, dome-shaped, dense. The surrounding strata were fractured like shockwaves frozen in stone. I stared at the 3D reconstruction late that night alone in the command center while the hum of the servers filled the room. The anomaly glowed on the screen like an embryo suspended in blackness. "What are you?" I whispered. The software labeled it simply, "Metallic Object, 99% confidence." But that wasn't the strangest part. Beneath the object embedded in the lower layers of rock was a second echo, smaller, fainter, but pulsating, almost rhythmic, as if something inside the mesa was still alive. The next morning, we decided to test the air above the triangle. My daughter Callista had built a multi-sensor array using microcomputers, pressure, altitude, temperature, electromagnetic flux, all coded by her own hand. We attached it to a LiDAR drone and sent it across the east field. The data stream was clean until it crossed an F beacon and an energy detection suite designed to record high-frequency electromagnetic pulses. The rocket rose perfectly straight until it reached 100 feet. Then, without warning, it curved in a smooth arc and vanished behind the mesa. "What the hell was that?" Dragon shouted. "Not wind," I said. "Look at the telemetry." The data showed a sudden acceleration, not a drift of force had acted on the rocket, redirecting it mid-flight. We launched another. Same result. As we stared into the darkness, a flash split the sky, white, pure, silent. It expanded, contracted, and vanished. Seconds later, the spectrometer registered a spike at 31 megahertz. "That's not background noise," Eric said. "No," I replied. "That's communication." "But from where?" The source triangulated to the mesa itself, specifically the same point where the radar had shown the metallic dome. Something was speaking from inside the mountain. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind replayed the data, the voices of my team, the slow, rhythmic pulse from the Earth. I thought about resonance, how energy can build between two frequencies until they merge, amplifying into something new. What if the mesa wasn't just reflecting signals? What if it was resonating, responding? In physics, resonance can shatter glass collapse bridges or make atoms leap to higher energy states. If a structure beneath the mesa was tuned to certain frequencies, perhaps it could store, release, even manipulate energy. I recalled the legends of the Ute tribes, the stories of skinwalkers, of portals between worlds of ancient guardians who crossed the sky like fire. For years, I dismissed those tales as folklore. Now, I wasn't so sure. At 3 a.m., unable to rest, I walked outside the command center. The night was still. The stars above Utah burned sharp and clear. The mesa loomed black against the horizon. Then I saw a faint glow seeping from a crevice near its summit. Not bright, but steady, like the pulse of a dying star. I stood there for a long time listening. The desert was silent, but deep beneath my feet, I could feel it, the thrum of something vast and buried, humming in time with my heartbeat. For the first time in my career, I realized that maybe science wasn't meant to explain everything. Maybe some truths aren't discovered, they're revealed when they choose to be. And the mesa had just started to whisper. The whisper came again the following night. It was faint like a radio frequency buried beneath white noise, but once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it. It pulsed every 27 seconds at exactly 31 megahertz, just low enough to hide beneath the natural static of the desert. We'd picked it up on Eric's spectrum analyzer around 2:14 a.m. The signal wasn't random, it was modulated, structured like a coded transmission. It's repeating, Eric said, leaning over the screen. 3 bursts, pause, 5 bursts, then 7. That's prime numbers, I said. 3, 5, 7. Another intelligent sequence. The air inside the command center was tense. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, blending with the whisper on the speakers. The mesa was talking again. Thomas rubbed his temples. If this is real, if it's communicating, what the hell is it trying to say? I stared at the waveform, mesmerized by its symmetry. We don't know yet, but it's not random. In nature, randomness is beautiful. Chaos, thermal noise, quantum fluctuations, the murmur of entropy. But intelligence leaves fingerprints, repetition, rhythm ratio. And this signal was false. One that didn't conform to any pattern we'd seen before. It wasn't binary. It wasn't Morse. It was harmonic. Travis Eric whispered, "Look at that." The waveform wasn't flat anymore. It rose and fell like a voice, modulating in amplitude, forming something akin to syllables. I think I said trying to steady my voice. It's mimicking human speech. Speech how? Resonance. The same principle used in digital vocoders converting frequency to tone. But this is geological material, he protested. It's rock. Maybe not just rock. For the next several days, we analyzed it like madmen. I pulled spectral decompositions, Fourier analyses, signal phase reconstructions. We converted the waveform into audio frequencies within the human range. The result chilled me. When we slowed the pulse down to 1/10 speed and filtered the harmonics, it formed a distinct pattern, 3 rising tones followed by a descending hum. It sounded almost alive. Eric called it the Mesa Song. But there was something deeper, something that science could not measure, only feel. Each time the pulse played through the speakers, the air in the command center shifted slightly. The temperature dropped by 1 or 2 degrees. Static tickled the skin of our forearms. The sound carried presence. We weren't listening to the mesa. The mesa was listening to us. By the 5th day, sleep became impossible. I'd close my eyes and hear the hum in my skull like an echo inside my bones. My dreams were filled with luminous arcs of light, bending through stone tunnels, spiraling into infinity. On the 6th morning, I found Eric sitting outside, staring toward the horizon. The sunrise painted the mesa in crimson. "You hear it too, don't you?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "It's in my head, Travis, like it's syncing with my heartbeat." I checked his pulse. It was irregular, fluttering between 80 and 120 beats per minute. His skin was clammy. "You need rest," I said. "I don't think rest will help." Later that afternoon, we tried to triangulate the signal's origin using a mobile antenna array. The readings didn't converge on a single point. Instead, they described a ring, a circular region about 40 meters in diameter halfway up the mesa. It wasn't coming from inside the rock, it was coming from a hollow space within it. Thomas frowned at the 3D model. You're saying there's a chamber. Looks like it, I said. Roughly spherical. How big? About the size of a small house. Man-made. I hesitated. Maybe, or maybe not. We decided to send in a micro-drone. It was a custom-built device the size of a grapefruit, fitted with LiDAR, a 4 kelvins camera, and EM sensors. Using a slim borehole from our earlier drill, we inserted it into the mesa. For a few minutes, everything worked perfectly. The feed showed narrow rock walls, compacted sediment streaks of metallic ore, then the drone entered an open cavity. Signals dropping, Jim said. Switch to low-frequency relay, I ordered. The camera flickered and then stabilized. The cavity was enormous. Smooth, curved surfaces reflected the drone's light like polished metal. Strange hexagonal patterns were etched into the walls, geometric, symmetrical, not random. Jesus Christ, Eric breathed. Get closer, I said. The drone advanced slowly. Its sensors registered elevated magnetic flux around 8 milligauss higher than ambient. The readings pulsed, matching the rhythm of the Mesa song. Travis Jim said quietly, the floor's moving. He was right. The surface below shimmered not like liquid, but like vibrating glass. Waves of distortion rolled outward from the center. Back it up, I said. The image froze. Static filled the screen. Then for less than a second, a face appeared. Not human, not animal, just two bright ovals of light where eyes should be framed by patterns that looked almost insectoid. Then the feed died. The drone never came back. We pulled the tether and found it cleanly severed, as if melted. No one spoke for a long time. The desert wind howled around us, carrying the scent of ozone. Finally, Thomas said, what we were all thinking, what the hell did we just see? I wanted to dismiss it as a reflection, a trick of light, a camera glitch. But deep down, I knew better. We'd stared into something ancient, something that had been watching long before humans learned to crawl. That night, I reviewed the footage frame by frame. Most of it was noise glitches, static black frames. But in one single frame, right before the signal cut, the face appeared again clearer this time. Behind it, faintly visible, was a vast structure curving away into darkness like the inner hull of a ship. The idea hit me like a revelation. What if the mesa wasn't a mountain at all? What if it was the remains of something buried, something built not by us, but by a civilization older than recorded history? I began to calculate. Based on radar density curvature and the 3D reconstruction, the structure inside the mesa could extend nearly 400 feet. The materials reflected radio waves the same way NASA's heat shields do. That wasn't coincidence. We were standing on top of a spacecraft. A week later, we brought in a new team of drillers, equipped with heavier rigs and reinforced bits. They were skeptical at first until their equipment started to fail. At 40 feet, the drill bit seized. At 60, the hydraulic pump overheated. At 70, the RF beacon on the drill head began transmitting on its own, sending random bursts of code. Travis Eric called from the receiver. You're not going to believe this. It's the same 31 megahertz frequency. The beacon was broadcasting the Mesa song. That night when we analyzed the data, we discovered something impossible the beacon had transmitted before we even powered it on. I couldn't sleep again. I sat outside beneath the stars, staring at the silent mesa, the faint glow still pulsing near its summit. The desert around me felt alive, charged. Static prickled the hair on my arms. The air shimmered faintly, bending the light of the stars. Then, from somewhere deep below, I felt it. A tremor, not seismic, but rhythmic. 3 pulses, pause 5 pulses, pause 7. The same pattern as the first transmission. I grabbed the portable analyzer. The frequency meter jumped straight to 31 megahertz. But this time there was something layered underneath a second harmonic higher at 48 megahertz. 2 voices now. Eric, I whispered into the radio, are you getting this? Yeah, his voice crackled back. But it's not just on the analyzer. It's on the comms. The mesa's bleeding into our radio. Static hiss, then, a faint, distorted voice emerged, a whisper threaded with metallic echoes. I couldn't make out the words, but one syllable repeated over and over in a cadence eerily human. Hell, hell. The voice faded. The analyzer returned to silence. I stood frozen in the wind, tugging at my jacket. In the distance, a pale light drifted above the mesa, moving slowly, deliberately, he said. It was silver gray, irregular, but smooth on one side. Under sunlight, it refracted faint rainbows like oil on water. Let's scan it, I said. Under the microscope, the surface revealed a lattice pattern of hexagonal cells, nanostructured, perfectly uniform, smaller than any known manufactured composite. I ran an X-ray fluorescence test. The results stunned me. 90% titanium, 8% scandium, 2% unknown. Unknown. No spectral match in the entire database. That's impossible, Eric said. I nodded slowly, and yet here it is. We placed the sample under a magnetic field. The needle jumped violently, then stabilized. The fragment was diamagnetic. It repelled magnetic fields. But when we applied a low-frequency electrical current, the polarity inverted. It wasn't metal as we know it. It was programmable. That night, while the others slept, I stared at the fragment under the microscope. In the faint reflection of the lens, megahertz. But beneath it, the harmonic had split again, 3 frequencies now weaving together like chords. And beneath them, buried deep in the noise floor, I heard it. A word. Soft, deliberate, unmistakable. Travis. I froze. The voice on the analyzer had just spoken my name. When the Mesa spoke my name, everything I knew about reality shifted. It wasn't just sound, it was intent. The syllables carried weight, resonance, the kind that vibrated inside the bones rather than in the ears. The analyzer captured it as a spike at 31.002 megahertz, but the harmonics extended all the way into microwave frequencies, a range often used in deep space communications. Who or what was calling me? By morning, the entire team was on edge. Eric tried to rationalize it. Could be an auditory pareidolia, he said. You're hearing patterns that aren't there. Then how do you explain the analyzer showing my name in phonetic structure, I asked. He didn't answer. Thomas, always the pragmatic one, crossed his arms. So what now? You talk back. Maybe we should, I said. If it's a communication system, we should respond. Eric stared at me like I'd gone insane. You want to send a message into a mountain that already knows your name? Yes, I said simply. Because it's already listening. We built a basic transmitter rig, nothing more than a function generator amplifier and directional antenna aimed straight at the Mesa. The frequency was tuned precisely to 31.002 megahertzes. I hesitated before flipping the switch. What should I say? Say hello, Thomas muttered it. So I did. Into the microphone, my voice barely above a whisper, I said, "This is Dr. Travis Taylor. We hear you." For several seconds, there was only static. Then the analyzer spiked again. A perfect echo of my voice returned, but slower drawn out, distorted, almost melodic. "We hear you." It had repeated me. Eric's mouth fell open. "That's impossible." "No," I said softly. "It's intelligent." The signal vanished as suddenly as it appeared. We tried calling again and again, but there was no further response. Still, the message had been clear. Whatever was inside the Mesa could not only detect our transmissions, it could understand and replicate them. Over the next few days, I buried myself in the data. The harmonic structure of the reply showed modulation signatures unlike any terrestrial source. Its timing pattern matched the rotational period of pulsars, neutron stars spinning at incredible speeds, sending rhythmic bursts of radiation across the galaxy. It was as if the Mesa's signal was synchronized with something far beyond Earth. I began to wonder if the Mesa was not merely a buried object, but part of a much larger network, a node in a cosmic web of communication. That idea led me to reanalyze older astronomical records. Several years ago, the CHIME telescope in Canada had detected mysterious fast radio bursts, FRBs, short millisecond-long pulses coming from billions of light years away. Most were random, but a few repeated at precise intervals. And one of those intervals every 16.35 days contained a pulse exactly at 31 megahertzes. Coincidence? Maybe. But I'd stopped believing in coincidences. "It's a helix," I said. "Exactly. The same geometry as a DNA strand." "What does that mean?" "It means Eric said whoever's sending this knows what we are." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stepped outside the stars, burning cold and white above the Utah desert. The sky was impossibly clear, stretching into infinity. For the first time, I felt small, not as a man or a scientist, but as a single neuron in the mind of something vast. Then I saw the light. It began as a pinprick above the Mesa, brightening, slowly shifting from blue to white to a golden hue I'd never seen before. The color wasn't part of the human spectrum. It shimmered like consciousness made visible. The light expanded, forming a perfect circle above the ridge. The air around it bent, distorting the stars behind it. I raised my Geiger counter. The reading spiked. "Eric, get out here," I shouted. He stumbled from the command trailer, half asleep, half terrified. "What the hell?" Before he could finish, the light pulsed once and the entire mesa responded. The ground shook. Dust rolled down the slopes. The sensors screamed with electromagnetic noise. "Power it down," Thomas yelled from inside. "Everything off." But it was too late. The entire grid flickered, then died. The desert fell silent. And in that silence, the voice returned, this time not through the radio. It came from the ground itself. A low, resonant hum spread outward, vibrating the soil beneath our boots. My heart synced with it, beating in time. For a moment, I felt connected, like the boundary between me and the world had dissolved. Images flooded my mind, not visions, but impressions. A planet bathed in twin suns, towers made of shimmering metal creatures, tall and pale, moving through corridors of light. Then darkness, impact, fire. A ship falling through an alien sky. I gasped, breaking free of the trance. My knees hit the ground. Eric grabbed my shoulder. "Travis, you okay?" "I saw it," I whispered. "I saw where it came from." "What came from?" "The thing inside the mesa. It's not just a structure, it's a vessel." We spent the next day analyzing every sensor log we could recover. The data was corrupted, riddled with errors. But in the middle of the chaos, a single coherent line of binary code appeared, embedded like a hidden signature. When we translated it, it formed coordinates. Right ascension, 19 hours, 41 meters, 52 seconds. Declination plus Sishadu, Shernady CCST. Vega, a star only 25 light years away. I felt a chill run down my spine. Vega had long fascinated astronomers. It's young, bright, surrounded by a disk of debris that could harbor planets. It was also the source of one of the earliest radio anomalies ever detected, the mysterious WOW signal of 1977, whose exact origin remains unexplained. Now the mesa was pointing us there. Eric stared at the coordinates on the screen. "You're telling me the thing buried under our feet is talking to a star system 25 light years away?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Thomas ran a hand through his hair. "You realize what that means? This isn't just Utah's problem anymore. This is extraterrestrial." I nodded slowly. "And it's awake." That evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains, the desert seemed to hold its breath. The air felt charged, expectant. We decided to send one last transmission, a directed signal aimed at Vega, matching the mesa's frequency. We encoded a simple message: "We are listening." The dish hummed as it transmitted. Then we waited. Hours passed. Nothing. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent. Thomas dozed off in a chair. Eric scribbled equations on a pad, muttering to himself. At 3:33 a.m., the analyzer chirped. The signal had returned. Not from the mesa, from space. The delay, precisely 25 years of light travel divided by the constant of c, didn't fit. This wasn't a round-trip signal from Vega. It was instantaneous. "Impossible," Eric breathed. But there it was, a pulse, repeating forming shapes when visualized. Letters. "Come below." I stared at the words on the screen. "What does that mean?" Thomas asked, his voice trembling. "It means," I said, "we need to go back into the mesa." We returned at dawn. The drillers had already cleared the site. The borehole from our last attempt was still open, a narrow black throat leading into the unknown. I lowered a new sensor array, temperature, magnetics, acoustic imaging. The readings were erratic. The deeper we went, the colder it became. At 60 feet, the thermometer read -20 Celsius. Travis, Eric said, "You're not thinking of going down there yourself, are you?" "Yes," I said. "You can't. We don't know what's down there." "That's exactly why I have to go." We rigged a harness and rope system. The borehole was narrow, but just wide enough for a person. With a headlamp recorder and a small oxygen supply, I began my descent. The walls were smooth, metallic, not rock. The deeper I went, the louder the hum became, like a heart beating through steel. At 80 feet, I reached an opening, a cavern glowing faintly blue. The air was still and cold. My breath formed crystals that hovered in place longer than they should, as if gravity here had grown weaker. In the center of the chamber stood a structure cylindrical, seamless, almost organic in shape. Its surface pulsed with light, each rhythm matching the 31 megahertz signal. I reached out and touched it. Instantly, a surge of images flooded my mind. Flashes of galaxies, nebulae, the birth of stars, voices, languages I didn't understand. And then a single overwhelming thought, not in words, but in meaning: we waited for you. I stumbled back, gasping. My hand burned where I'd touched the surface. The skin was unmarked, but I could still feel the vibration under it like a second heartbeat. Travis, come in. Eric's voice echoed through the comms. I'm here, I whispered. What's happening down there? I looked around the chamber. The walls began to shift, reconfiguring like liquid metal, forming new shapes. Patterns of light cascaded upward, forming a lattice of symbols. It's alive, I said, and it's trying to show me something. The symbols rearranged into a familiar pattern, a spiral. But this one wasn't DNA. It was cosmic stretching from one end of the chamber to the other. Each curve represented a star connected by glowing lines. A map. And at its center, Earth. The spiral extended outward through the galaxy connecting systems, Vega, Sirius, Procyon, Arcturus. At the edges, faint dots shimmered in constellations we had never cataloged. This isn't just a ship, I whispered. It's a network. The light intensified until the entire chamber glowed white. My earpiece crackled with Eric's frantic voice. Travis, you're off the charts. Energy spikes through the roof. I could barely hear him. The hum grew louder, resonating with my heartbeat. Then everything went silent. For a fraction of a second, the universe folded. Space twisted, not visually, but perceptually, as though reality had blinked. When it snapped back, I was no longer standing in the chamber. I was floating. Stars surrounded me, endless and close spinning in slow, perfect arcs. A vast structure hung before me, black as void, lit by rivers of blue light. It wasn't a ship. It was an entire world, mechanical, yet alive, orbiting a distant star. And a voice spoke not through sound, but directly into my thoughts. You touched the seed. Now you see the root. I tried to speak, but words were useless here. The presence continued. Your world is young. You were not meant to find us yet. But the signal awakened what we left behind. What are you, I managed to think? The architects, the ones who shaped the resonance between matter and thought. Your mesa is our memory. Then the stars faded and I was back in the chamber, gasping for air. The light dimmed to a soft glow. The hum subsided. Travis talked to me, Eric's voice shouted. I'm here, I rasped. I saw them. Who? I don't know. But they built this. And they're not gone. When I surfaced, the team pulled me out of the borehole, faces pale and eyes wide. The monitors behind them flickered with data possible A structure, a field of light. It called itself the Architects. The Architects, Eric frowned, as in creators. Not gods, I said. Engineers, builders of resonance between matter and thought. He blinked. You mean consciousness? Yes. They built matter that can remember intention. For a long moment, no one spoke. The desert wind sighed through the scrub. Thomas finally exhaled. That's a lot, Travis. I know how it sounds, I said, but there's more. They showed me something stars connected by a spiral of energy, like a galactic neural network, and Earth is part of it. Eric rubbed his face. If what you saw was real, we need proof. Data. Equations. Agreed, I said, and I think I know where to start. Over the next week, we set up a new array of instruments around the mesa: seismographs, magnetometers, interferometers, even an old hydrogen maser clock. Our goal was simple: detect measurable resonance patterns between the mesa's internal frequencies and cosmic background signals. It didn't take long to find something. At 31.002 megahertz, the same base frequency that called my name, we detected phase locking with deep space radio emissions. The synchronization wasn't random. It matched the oscillation of the hydrogen line, 420 megahertz. It isn't just sound, it's the fundamental way energy organizes itself. Planets orbit in resonance, electrons spin in resonance. Consciousness itself might be a standing wave in quantum fields. The architects understood that long before we did. We began running simulations Fourier models of oscillating fields. What we found stunned us. The mesa's frequency wasn't stable. It drifted with the position of Earth in orbit. Every day, the resonance curve shifted by a few millihertz, precisely following the movement of the planet relative to Vega. It's tracking Vega, Eric whispered. Not tracking, I said. Communicating. That night under the desert sky, I lay awake thinking about resonance. Every civilization eventually learns that sound, pure frequency can shape reality. The ancient Egyptians carved stones with acoustic tools. Tibetan monks moved sand into sacred geometry with vibration alone. What if those ancient practices weren't primitive rituals? The figure tilted its head slightly as if considering. When it spoke, the words formed both in the air and inside my mind. You awakened the seed. Eric stumbled back. Travis, is that real? I ignored him. What is the seed? Resonance between with the core, you became the key. I swallowed hard. Where does this resonance lead? The figure lifted its arm and the air rippled. Stars blossomed in front of us, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy glowing between us like a living hologram. Lines connected systems in graceful spirals. This again, I whispered. The network. We built it to carry thought across distance. Sound was too slow, light too crude. So we shaped figure's light shimmered. It is aware, but awareness requires mirrors. Each star, each world, each mind reflects it. You are its reflection. Then as quickly as it came, the figure faded. The light collapsed into a single beam and vanished back into the borehole. For several minutes, none of us spoke. The night air felt electric, charged with static and awe. Thomas finally broke the silence. So, do we tell anyone about this? I shook my head slowly. Not yet. Not until we understand. We spent the following weeks decoding the event. The energy patterns we recorded were unlike anything on Earth. Spikes in negative mass readings, non-local synchronization between instruments, separated by kilometers, and a measurable distortion in space-time curvature around the mesa. Einstein's equations allowed such warping in theory, but to see it here on this quiet patch of desert was another thing entirely. I sent the data to a colleague at Caltech under a pseudonym. His response came 2 days later. If these readings are accurate, you've captured a localized manipulation of the cosmological constant. In plain terms, someone or something briefly rewrote the rules of space. We had crossed the boundary between geology and cosmology. The mesa wasn't just alien, it was operating on universal principles, manipulating the same energy that governs galaxies. Late one night, while reviewing the data alone, I noticed something odd in the waveform of the light pulses. There were small gaps, intentional pauses between bursts. When I mapped them as binary, they formed symbols, letters. Spelling out one phrase, remember the source. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I told Eric what I'd found. He stared at the monitor for a long time, then looked up. Travis, what if this isn't the first time Earth has been contacted? It's not, I said quietly. I think this is where it began. I pulled up satellite maps of ancient sites, Giza, Machu Picchu, Nazca, Stonehenge, each aligned with specific stellar systems, Orion, Sirius, Pleiades, the same stars marked in the mesa's holographic map. The architects had left breadcrumbs across time. Thomas chuckled nervously. So the pyramids are antennas now. In a sense, yes, I said. Resonance structures designed to stabilize local space-time. Ancient humans didn't build them alone. They inherited the knowledge. Eric tapped the screen, and now we've reactivated one of the nodes. Exactly, the network is waking up. A week later, the mesa pulsed again, this time visible across the entire valley. Locals reported shimmering lights, compass failures, even hallucinations. Military radar picked up transient objects above the ranch, metallic orbs moving against the wind, vanishing at impossible speed. Then one of them came down. It wasn't dramatic, no crash, no explosion, just a silent descent, a sphere of silver light that landed in the northern basin. When we approached, it was already cooling, half buried in sand. The surface was smooth and warm, humming faintly. As we got closer, symbols appeared through it. Few survive what follows. What follows? Understanding. The stars rippled. I saw glimpses, planets of crystalline oceans, beings of light, building towers that sang with gravity, others that consumed their suns in pursuit of eternal power. Civilizations rising and falling like breath. We seeded them all, the voice said. But consciousness became divided. Some sought harmony. Others sought control. The field fractured. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with humanity descended from you, not from, through. The stars pulsed brighter. Your atoms were forged in the same stars as ours, but your consciousness carries our design. My vision blurred. And matter, waiting for anyone capable of hearing its frequency. The architects are not gone. They are the universe itself, and the mesa is their voice. Outside, the desert slept beneath the stars, but I could feel it, the pulse beneath the ground, steady and patient. The resonance was building again, and next time, it wouldn't just call my name. It would call all of us. When the men in black SUVs arrived, I knew it was too late to hide. They came without insignia, without introduction. Take it from here. I felt the weight of those words sink into my stomach. Take what? The operation, the site, everything you've collected. Behind me, Eric clenched his jaw. You can't just... The man's stare silenced him. We can and we will. National security interest, Dr. Taylor. You've encountered something far beyond your clearance. I laughed bitterly. There's no clearance level for this. His expression didn't change. Then you understand why it must be contained. Within hours, the entire mesa was cordoned off. Drones buzzed overhead. Armed personnel sealed the borehole, erecting a temporary structure around it. All our data drives were confiscated. They left us our notebooks maybe as a cruel joke. That night, I sat outside my trailer watching the floodlights sweep across the ridge. The hum beneath the ground was still there, faint but constant. The resonance hadn't stopped. If anything, it had grown stronger. Eric joined me carrying 2 cups of stale coffee. They're not even pretending it's a geological survey anymore, he muttered. No, they know exactly what it is. He sipped, eyes distant. You think they've seen this before? I nodded slowly. Skinwalker Ranch isn't the only place in the world with anomalies like this. I've read reports Tunguska, Dyatlov, Pass Antarctica, the Sahara. Each time something falls from the sky, the land vibrates for decades, and then the government locks it away. So they already knew. Maybe. Or maybe they've been trying to wake it up too. By morning, they moved us to a temporary facility in Salt Lake City military compound, high security, no explanations. They said it was for debriefing. The interrogation rooms were windowless, cold, perfectly neutral. A woman in a gray suit questioned me for hours. She never raised her voice, never smiled. Her questions were surgical. When did the first signal occur? What frequencies were used? Did you experience any hallucinations? Did the entity identify itself by name? Entity. She said it like a scientist naming a virus. When I refused to answer, she sighed. Dr. Taylor, your cooperation is essential. The government has invested considerable resources in studying sites like this. Sites like this? I asked sharply. How many are there? Her gaze flicked upward almost imperceptibly. You're not cleared for that information. That told me everything I needed to know. After 3 days, they released us without explanation, without equipment, only a warning, do not return to the ranch. Of course, that was exactly what we did. The night we molten gold. The resonance was no longer hidden. It was alive, pulsing with rhythm. I pulled out a portable analyzer. The readings danced wildly off the scale. The frequency had shifted upward to 62 megahertzes. Double. Resonance doubling, I murmured. It's accelerating. Then from the sky, a beam of light descended thin as a thread, bright as lightning. It struck the mesa, but there was no sound, no explosion. The air simply folded inward, rippling like liquid glass. We fell back, shielding our eyes. When I looked again, the borehole was gone. In its place was a perfectly smooth depression, circular, metallic, glowing faintly from within. It's sealing itself, Eric whispered, or preparing to open. The following days blurred together. We stayed hidden in the nearby hills, watching from a distance. The glow never faded. Then one night, we saw movement. A figure, humanoid but tall, impossibly tall, emerged from the light. It walked slowly across the basin, shimmering like heat distortion. Its body emitted faint blue waves, bending the air around it. Jesus, Eric breathed. That's not a drone. No, I said quietly. That's them. The being stopped at the edge of the depression. It raised its arm toward the sky. And then above us, the stars shifted. Not literally, at least not physically. It was like the sky itself bent around an invisible curve, warping space. A ring of light appeared high above, perfectly circular, spinning with slow majesty. The architect's eye whispered. The figure lowered its arm and the ring began to descend. The light thickened, forming strands, bridges of energy stretching between heaven and earth. For a moment, I saw shapes moving within the light structures, corridors, perhaps entire cities folded within the beam. Eric clutched my shoulder. Travis, are we seeing the same thing? I think I said softly, we're seeing another world. Then everything vanished. The light, the figure, the hum, all gone, replaced by the indifferent quiet of the desert. But when I checked the analyzer, it was still recording. The data wasn't electromagnetic. It was gravitational. Fluctuations in local space-time curvature ripples traveling faster than light. They hadn't just opened a portal. They had bent reality itself. I spent the next weeks rebuilding our lab in secret. With Eric's help, I pieced together fragments of our confiscated data, reconstructing the resonance signatures from memory. Patterns emerged. Every harmonic frequency correlated to fundamental constants of physics, the fine structure constant Planck length gravitational coupling. The architects weren't using arbitrary tones. They were playing the universe like an instrument. That realization changed everything. If consciousness could interact with physical reality through resonance, then matter wasn't passive, it was responsive. Thought wasn't separate from physics, it was part of it. Quantum mechanics hinted at this in its strangest experiments, the observer effect where particles behave differently when measured. But here at the Mesa, that principle wasn't theory, it was tangible. When the architects built their network, they encoded thought directly into space-time. And somehow I had become the key that reactivated it. I tried to reason why. Maybe my brain's electrical pattern aligned naturally with the field. Maybe it was coincidence. But deep down, I felt something more profound recognition. The field remembered me. One evening, as the sun bled across the horizon, Eric handed me a folded piece of paper. "I found this," he said. It was in the old files from the Department of Energy. They missed it. It was a declassified report from 1978 Project Resonant Echo. The summary described an experimental site in Nevada where scientists had detected a low-frequency signal pulsing from underground. The signal caused hallucinations, time dilation, and electromagnetic distortions. The final line of the report chilled me. Resonance identical to anomaly detected in Utah sector. Recommend containment under Mesa Class protocol. Mesa Class. They'd known about this for over 40 years, and they'd classified it by name. That night I dreamed of Vega again. A sea of light, a voice whispering through the void, the bridge is almost complete. When I awoke, the sky outside was flickering faintly. Aurora-like colors rippled above the desert, silent and impossible this far south. Eric burst in breathless. "Travis, it's happening again." We raced to the ridge. The entire mesa was glowing white, now veins of light pulsing like arteries. The air buzzed with energy so dense it made my teeth ache. "Frequency," I shouted. 62.02 megahertz and climbing. The ground trembled. Rocks shifted underfoot. Then from within the mesa came a sound, not mechanical, not natural. It was a deep harmonic chord that resonated across the valley, vibrating the very air. And then above us, the ring of light appeared again. This time it didn't vanish. It descended slowly, enveloping the entire mesa in radiant gold. Inside the light, I saw shadows moving, hundreds of them, graceful and tall, their forms flickering like holograms. Eric grabbed my arm. "We're out of our depth, Travis. This isn't a message anymore, it's an arrival." But I couldn't move. The sound pulled me forward, each step guided by something deeper than will. At the center of the light, I saw it the same crystalline sphere I'd touched before, now hovering above the ground. It pulsed once, then exploded in silence. The world dissolved. I was standing inside the light again, but this time it was different. The structures around me weren't alien, they were familiar. I recognized the curvature, the texture, the symbols. It was Earth, but not the Earth I knew. The sky shimmered with energy fields. The horizon curved upward like the inside of a colossal dome. Floating platforms drifted overhead, powered by nothing visible. And everywhere beings of light moved in patterns, scientists, explorers, architects of gravity itself. One of them approached. Its form was luminous but humanoid. "You have crossed the threshold," it said. "Where am I?" I asked. "Between." The resonance field links worlds, separated by perception, not distance. You are in the echo of your own reality. I don't understand. Your universe is one layer of many. The architects built the bridges to maintain harmony between them, but your kind forgot the resonance. You divided science and spirit, and the field grew silent. Why now? Because the silence is ending, The universe is shifting. Conscious life must awaken or collapse. I swallowed hard. What do you want from us? To remember, to listen, to build again. Then it placed its hand, if you could call it that, on my chest. A wave of energy rippled through me. I felt every atom vibrate in tune with the universe itself. The next harmonic will awaken others. Prepare them. The light faded, and I was back in the desert, lying on my back, gasping for air. The mesa was dark again, silent. Eric and Thomas hovered over me. Travis, you vanished for over an hour. I sat up trembling. No, I said softly. I was gone much longer. That night, I wrote the final note in my field journal. We are not discovering the universe. We are remembering it. The architects are not coming. They've always been here, woven into the frequencies between our atoms. The mesa is their reminder, a tuning fork for human consciousness. When the walls of the Pentagon sublevel conference room vibrated faintly, not from machinery, but from something deeper. The hum was back, and this time everyone could hear it. It started as a rumor on social media, low-frequency sounds shaking windows in London and Buenos Aires and Tokyo. Then seismic stations began reporting strange rhythmic pulses, identical in timing across continents. 31 megahertz, exactly the same frequency that had spoken my name. The officials stared at the screens, their faces pale. Satellite telemetry showed faint electromagnetic halos appearing over specific geographic points. The Giza Plateau, the Himalayas, the Andes, Easter Island, and of course the Mesa. All of them pulsing in perfect sync. The resonance had gone global. One general leaned forward. Dr. Taylor, you told us this was localized. It was, I said, until we woke it up. He slammed his fist against the table. You mean to tell me we triggered a planetary event by digging a hole in the desert? Not triggered, I corrected softly. Activated. He glared. And what exactly have we activated? I took a deep breath. The architects built a resonance network spanning the planet, possibly the entire solar system. Each site is a node tuned to a universal frequency. When one awakens, the others respond. The woman beside him frowned. You're saying this is alien technology? I'm saying it's older than we are. Silence filled the room. Then faintly, from somewhere deep beneath us, the walls vibrated again. The hum was everywhere now. Over the next few days, chaos spread across the globe. Power grids flickered. GPS systems failed. Auroras appeared at the equator. Birds migrated in spirals, whales sang at ultrasonic frequencies, and the Schumann resonance, the Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat, spiked to unprecedented levels. But amid the panic, something else began to happen. People started dreaming the same dream. Reports came from every continent, visions of light, of spiral galaxies, of beings made of energy, whispering in a language no one could understand, but everyone somehow remembered. Scientists called it mass hysteria. I called it awakening, because I was dreaming it too. One night, I stood on the balcony of my temporary quarters staring at the skyline. Even here in the heart of the capital, the stars seemed brighter. Interference. Travis, you're not going to believe this. The mesa's levitating. What? I mean, literally ground's lifting like the whole formation's breathing. Instruments are reading gravitational fluctuations we can't explain. It's like the rock's weight is changing. How bad? Enough to bend radar. And there's something else. The frequency shifted again. 62 megahertz wasn't the limit. It's harmonizing upward. I think it's aligning with the hydrogen hyperfine transition. 420 megahertz, I whispered. The cosmic communication band, Eric said. Travis, I think it's trying to talk to the universe. By the next morning, observatories confirmed it. The Very Large Array in New Mexico picked up synchronized bursts of radio energy at 420 megahertz, originating not from space, but from Earth itself. We were transmitting. The signal was strong enough to bounce off the ionosphere and project into deep space. If anyone out there was listening, they'd hear it clearly. The Earth had started speaking. NASA officially denied it, of course. But deep down, I knew this wasn't something they could contain. When the universe responds, no fence can keep it out. The first physical manifestation happened in Chile. A research team near Atacama reported a sphere of light descending from the sky. Unlike meteorites, it didn't burn, it hovered. Local seismographs recorded the ground vibrating at the exact harmonic of 31 megahertz. 2 days later, a similar event occurred over Tibet, then over the ocean near Easter Island. Everywhere the old resonance sites existed, the lights appeared. They weren't attacks, they were signals. The architects were calling back. I flew to Utah, determined to return to the mesa one last time. The military perimeter was abandoned now, their temporary structures half collapsed. The desert was eerily quiet. Eric met me near the ridge, his eyes sunken but alive with obsession. It's changing every hour, he said. The readings are unpredictable, but there's a pattern emerging like the signals rewriting physics itself. I frowned. Explain. Local time dilation, gravity fluctuations, even radioactive decay rates have shifted. It's like the constants of nature are being retuned. I knelt, pressing my palm against the ground. The hum vibrated through my skin, resonating with my pulse. The architects called it resonance between matter and thought, I murmured. Maybe they're harmonizing the field that connects both. Eric nodded slowly. If that's true, then reality itself might be conscious, or becoming conscious again. That night we set up our last experiment, a synchronized laser interferometer array designed to detect microscopic distortions in space-time. We tuned it to the mesa's frequency. At precisely 3:31 a.m., the signal peaked. The beam split and curved. Light itself bent along invisible arcs, forming spirals of glowing dust in the air. The detector screamed with data. Then through the interference, a pattern emerged. Not random, not chaos. Letters. A single phrase formed in the interference fringes spelled out by light, "We are returning." Eric's voice cracked. Jesus Travis. I stared at the glowing words, unable to breathe. They're coming back. In the following days, reports flooded in from around the world. Satellites captured massive energy signatures, forming beyond lunar orbit, spherical fields of light expanding geometrically. Astronomers in Hawaii tracked them for hours before they disappeared from conventional detection. Then the tide shifted. The moon's orbit wobbled by fractions of a degree. Oceanic currents changed. Auroras intensified into continuous global halos. The Earth was responding to something massive approaching from beyond its magnetic field. The architects were indeed returning. Governments scrambled. News agencies censored broadcasts. But in the age of global networks, the truth bled through. Everywhere people felt it, a deep hum not heard but known, a vibration beneath thought aligning human consciousness in ways no one could explain. Psychologists reported spikes in empathy, lucid dreams, synchronized intuition, violence rates dropped, creativity soared. Something fundamental in the human mind was shifting. The resonance wasn't just geological or electromagnetic, it was neurological. I ran EEG tests on myself. The results terrified me. My brain waves had begun oscillating exactly at 31 hertz, the gamma frequency associated with high-level consciousness and collective cognition. We were being tuned. 3 days later, I received an encrypted message from an old contact at CERN. It contained only 3 lines: particle collisions producing non-local coherence, detectors resonating at 31 megahertz, it's everywhere. The resonance had infiltrated the quantum world. Subatomic particles were responding to a global frequency, behaving as if entangled across space. The line between physics and consciousness had finally blurred. On the 7th night, I returned to the mesa alone. The sky glowed faintly as if the stars were watching. I carried only one instrument, a portable spectrometer tuned to the cosmic hydrogen line. When I reached the ridge, I stopped. The ground beneath me pulsed with light, slow and deliberate like a heartbeat. And then, without warning, the entire horizon lit up. A beam of pure white energy shot upward, connecting Earth to the heavens. Within it, shapes moved, vast shimmering forms, larger than mountains composed of liquid geometry. I fell to my knees, unable to look away. They were here. The architects had returned. Their presence wasn't invasion, it was revelation. They didn't land or speak or display power, they simply were. Their energy washed over the land, through my body, through the air. In that instant, I understood. They weren't beings in the way we think. They were frequencies, conscious harmonics woven into the structure of space-time itself. The architects were the symphony of existence, and the universe was their song. One of the forms descended, hovering before me. Its voice wasn't sound, but thought vibrating through reality. "You have carried the seed well." I whispered, "What happens now?" The resonance completes. Humanity will remember its origin. Will we survive it? Survival is a lower form of existence. You will become part of the field. You already are. Then it extended its hand, pure energy, radiant and gentle. The moment it touched my chest, everything dissolved. The desert, the stars, my body. I was everywhere. I saw the Earth from orbit glowing with webs of golden light connecting continents. I saw cities pulsing like neurons, oceans shimmering like liquid data. Every living mind on the planet sang the same frequency, 31 megahertz. The resonance had unified consciousness. For the first time in human history, there was no division, no chaos, no war, just harmony. The architects didn't arrive to rule us, they arrived to remind us that we were them all along, fractured echoes of the same cosmic mind. As I floated in that infinite lattice of light, a final whisper echoed through the field. The universe is not a machine, it's a memory trying to remember itself. And then silence. Pure infinite silence. When I woke, I was lying on the desert floor. The mesa was gone. In its place was a crater filled with smooth metallic glass, still warm to the touch. The hum had stopped. The resonance had ended. But inside my mind, I could still hear it faintly, the pulse of the architects, steady and eternal. The frequency that connected all life. The sound of the universe remembering. It's been 143 days since the hum stopped. Or maybe it hasn't stopped at all. Sometimes late at night, I still feel it under my skin, a vibration too soft for instruments, too real for denial. It's not sound anymore. It's presence, like the pulse of a memory that refuses to fade. The world has changed. The skies shimmer faintly now as though the atmosphere itself has learned to glow. People speak softer, move slower. There's less noise, less fury, less need. Scientists call it the global phase alignment. Philosophers call it the quiet age. I call it aftermath. The mesa is gone, melted into a glassy crater that hums faintly when touched. The government sealed it off, built fences, posted guards, who no longer know what they're guarding. Eric left months ago. He couldn't stand the silence. He said he missed chaos, missed gravity, missed the old world where cause and effect still made sense. Thomas stayed for a while, then disappeared one morning, left his ID on the dashboard car doors, opened no tracks in the sand. Sometimes I think he heard the hum again and followed it. As for me, I live in the shadow of what used to be the mesa. Every sunrise paints the crater gold. Every night I watch the stars and wait, because I know they're still here. The architects never really left. They just changed frequency. A few weeks after the resonance ended, the dreams began. They weren't like before, no visions of light or star maps, just feelings, memories that didn't belong to me. A vast library of experiences stretching across time, the birth of galaxies, the death of suns, the first flicker of life in a primordial ocean, and always the same whisper, you carry the seed. At first I thought it was a symptom, trauma, or delusion, but then other people started describing the same thing. Farmers in Argentina, students in Mumbai, astronauts aboard the ISS, all dreaming of the same vast light. The resonance hadn't disappeared. It had moved inside us. I began testing myself again. My brainwaves still oscillated at 31 hertzes, but now they fluctuated in sync with solar activity as if my mind was tuned to the rhythm of the Sunday, and I wasn't alone. Global EEG data showed a subtle synchronization in human neural activity, a shared pulse linking millions of people, not constant, not forced, just quietly coherent. The world's population had become a single instrument humming in unison with the cosmos. What terrified me most wasn't the data, it was how natural it felt. 2 months later, I was invited to Geneva. The United Nations had assembled a Scientific Harmony Task Force, a sanitized term for what was really an emergency council of physicists, neurologists, and theologians. They wanted answers. When I arrived, the room was filled with tension, diplomats, generals, scientists, all staring at a projection of the Earth covered in faint lines of light. The Resonance Network, still active. A delegate from France spoke first. Dr. Taylor, we have reason to believe your experiment triggered a global event. The question is it reversible? I looked around the table. Why would you want to reverse it? He frowned. Because it's changing people. Governments are losing control. Economies are collapsing. Religion is fracturing. People no longer fear death. They've stopped obeying. I couldn't help but smile. Maybe that's not collapse. Maybe that's evolution. A murmur swept the room. The delegate's eyes hardened. We can't govern a species that no longer fears. Maybe you were never meant to. They didn't like that. That night, someone broke into my quarters. They didn't steal anything, but they left a warning, a single word scrawled on the mirror in red marker, "Stop." I laughed when I saw it, because it was already too late. You can't stop resonance. Once a frequency enters the mind, it becomes part of its architecture, and consciousness, once expanded, never contracts. Back in Utah, the sky had changed again. The stars seemed closer, now brighter. Astronomers said the local curvature of space-time had subtly altered, not enough to panic, but enough to measure. It was as if Earth's gravity was being retuned. I stood at the crater's edge watching streaks of aurora ripple across the horizon. The ground beneath my feet pulsed gently like a living thing. And then I heard it again. The hum, faint but there. A whisper under the wind. I knelt and placed my hand on the glassy surface. The vibration crawled up my arm into my chest, syncing with my heartbeat. Then inside my head, a voice. The cycle continues. My eyes filled with light. The world around me dissolved not into stars this time, but into layers of reality, like veils peeling away. I saw cities built from energy beings walking through space without ships, planets connected by filaments of light. And at the center of it all, a vast consciousness, the architects themselves, pulsing like the heart of the universe. They spoke in harmonics, in pure meaning. You feared separation, you feared ending, but there is no end, only resonance, moving from one form to another. I tried to speak, but my voice was part of their song now. Your species has crossed the threshold. The field remembers itself through you. The next step is not ascent, but alignment. Alignment, I thought, with the source. The frequency beneath all frequencies. The sound that began creation. For a moment, I felt it, the origin. The vibration that birthed time, space, matter, and mind. The first thought of the universe. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, the crater was gone. I was standing in a field of tall grass under a silver sky. The air shimmered faintly with static. I wasn't on Earth anymore. Not exactly. In the distance, structures floated above the horizon, translucent spires made of energy, humming with the same 31 megahertz's tone. Figures moved between them, luminous and graceful. One approached me. I recognized the shape, instantly the same being I'd seen inside the mesa months ago. You chose to listen, it said. Where am I? In the bridge between worlds. The architects do not dwell in space, but in resonance. You have learned to tune yourself here. Why me? Because you believed the hum was not madness, but invitation. It extended its hand again. Walk with us. As I stepped forward, the landscape unfolded infinite layers of light, each one vibrating at a slightly different tone. Worlds within worlds, dimensions like overlapping songs. Everywhere I looked, life. Not human, not alien, but awareness in endless forms. Somewhere deep within the resonance, I saw Earth small, glowing, surrounded by golden threads, connecting it to countless others. The architect's network was alive again. You call it the universe, the voice said. We call it memory. Every star is a neuron, every planet a dream, every life a thought. And what am I asked. The one who remembered first. Time, if that word still meant anything, passed differently there. Minutes felt like centuries, and yet no moment was ever lost. I saw humanity learning to live with the resonance, adapting, evolving. Children born after the event could sense frequencies adults could not. They could feel storms before they came, communicate emotions without words, perceive the curvature of gravity as color. A new species was emerging, Homo resonans. And I realized that was the architect's final act to awaken the next version of consciousness, not to rule it, but to complete it. Eventually, the architect's light began to fade. You must return, they said. Your kind still needs the bridge. I hesitated. Will I see you again? When you no longer need to ask. The light folded around me and I was falling gently like drifting through liquid time. Then air, wind, gravity. I was back in Utah standing at the edge of the crater. The sky was clear, the stars steady. The hum was gone again. But I didn't need to hear it anymore. Because it was inside me now, steady, eternal, infinite. It's been years since then, though. The word years feels obsolete. The world continues to transform quietly. The old systems fade. A gentler civilization rises. People don't worship gods anymore. They study resonance. They build instruments that harmonize with stars. They speak less, listen more. And every once in a while, a child is born with eyes that shimmer faintly under starlight. We call them listeners. When they close their eyes, they can hear the architect's song. Sometimes I sit by the crater notebook in handwriting equations that no longer need proof. The hum beneath the world pulses like a heartbeat, patient and kind. And I understand now the universe was never silent. It was waiting for someone to answer. The architects didn't give us salvation, they gave us symmetry, the harmony between knowing and being. And in that symmetry, I finally hear it, the sound beneath all sounds, the frequency that began it all. Not K's, not explosion. Just a single perfect note, the first whisper of creation. They say the new world began the day silence became music. I don't know who first said it, maybe one of the children born after the hum. They hear the world differently. For them, thunder isn't noise, it's rhythm. Wind is melody. Even the space between heartbeats has tone. The architects didn't give us technology, they gave us perception. Now perception has changed everything. It started slowly. Machines no longer worked the same way, they responded to thought, to intent. A pilot could guide a ship without touching controls, simply by harmonizing with its onboard resonance field. Medical scanners began detecting not just illness, but disharmony, emotional or mental dissonance that preceded physical decline. We learned that matter follows mind when mind stops pretending to be separate. Energy grids shifted from combustion to coherence. New resonant reactors appeared generating power through tuned vacuum fields, energy drawn not from destruction but from symmetry. They call it the zero harmonic principle, the idea that creation requires no loss. And for the first time in history, the world runs without taking more than it gives. Governments as we knew them dissolved within a decade, not by rebellion but by irrelevance. When everyone can feel everyone else, deception becomes impossible. Borders faded, armies disbanded, the currencies of fear, power, profit, possession lost value. In their place came resonant councils, circles of scientists, artists, thinkers, farmers, children, anyone capable of listening. Decisions aren't made by vote anymore. They emerge through coherence, the moment when all frequencies align, and the answer simply appears. It sounds impossible, but I've seen it. The Earth itself has changed. Our magnetic poles stabilized. The climate, once chaotic, began to settle as human emotion calmed. We discovered that the planet isn't a passive rock, it's a resonant body. Every thought, every wave of emotion alters its frequency just a little. When billions of minds stop vibrating in conflict, the planet breathes easier. It's not mysticism, it's physics. The Schumann resonance, once fluctuating unpredictably, now holds steady at 8.3 hertzes, the same frequency as the human alpha rhythm during meditation. The Earth and the human brain finally beat in sync. The night skies are different too. Auroras now paint the horizon in soft gold every evening, even at the equator. Astronomers have stopped calling them magnetic storms. They call them conscious light. We used to think the cosmos was silent. But radio telescopes now pick up patterns of low-frequency hums, melodies spanning millions of kilometers. Each star system hums in a slightly different tone, forming chords that stretch across galaxies. Music of the spheres, once poetic, now measurable. We discovered that the architect's network wasn't unique to Earth. The same harmonic geometry appears on other worlds. Europa's ice ridges, Titan's methane seas, even Mars's magnetic crust. Each world is a node, each life a note. And together they form the universal symphony. As for me, I'm old now. The resonance slows aging, but doesn't erase time. The body still remembers gravity, even if the mind has learned to float. Sometimes I walk to the crater at dawn. It's no longer a wound in the desert, it's a mirror. When the first sunlight hits, it reflects the sky in perfect clarity. And if you listen closely, you can hear the faintest vibration underfoot. The architects still whisper there. I've recorded hundreds of hours of the sound. It never repeats. It's always improvising, like jazz played by stars. I think they're still teaching us. Children gather there sometimes, the listeners. They bring instruments, crystal harps, resonant drums, even modified quantum strings. They play in harmony with the hum, and when the tones align perfectly, the air ripples. Sometimes in those ripples, we see faces, light forms, hovering above the ground, smiling with familiarity. The architects aren't gods to these children. They're collaborators. And maybe that's how it was always meant to be. The other day, a little girl asked me, Dr. Taylor, what did the architects really want? I told her the truth. They wanted us to stop looking for them and start hearing ourselves. She nodded solemnly, then pointed to the horizon where the sun met the glowing rim of the world. Then maybe they live there, she said between the sounds. I smiled. Yes, that's exactly where they live. At night, when I close my eyes, I can still see the lattice of light stretching across the stars, the same map I saw inside the mesa years ago. Only now I understand it wasn't just a map. It was a mirror. Every line, every spiral, every glow, it wasn't showing where the architects were, it was showing what we are becoming. Humanity's final evolution isn't toward the stars, but through them to become part of the resonance that sings them into being. There's a legend among the new generation. They say when the resonance reaches perfect balance, when every mind on earth vibrates in harmony, the sky will open once more, and the architect's song will merge with ours, one final chord ringing across the universe, marking the moment creation completes itself. They call it the last note. Sometimes I think I can almost hear it. A single, pure tone, not loud, but infinite. It carries everything, sorrow, joy, beginning, end. The sound of matter remembering mind. The sound of mind forgiving itself. The sound of home. I don't know if humanity will ever reach that perfect harmony. Maybe it's not meant to. Maybe the beauty lies in the tuning, the eternal reaching for balance. The architects taught us that resonance is not perfection, it's relationship. And as long as one heart beats in rhythm with the stars, the song continues. I'll keep listening until mine stops. And when it does, maybe, just maybe, I'll wake on the other side of the frequency, where silence becomes music again, and music becomes light, and light becomes us. Time has long ceased to mean what it once did. Years have stretched, folded, inverted. The clocks we use to measure the universe are relics of an age when we believed separation was real. Now even memory flows both ways. They call me the last listener. I am not the last human, far from it. Humanity endures scattered like seeds across the resonance field, but I am the last to remember the silence before the song. The others were born into harmony. They breathed coherence like air, but I still remember chaos. I remember the weight of fear, the boundaries of thought, the ache of loneliness. Sometimes I miss it. The cities now are nothing like the ones I knew. They hover above the ground, held aloft by the same harmonic fields that once sang in the mesa. Energy flows through them in golden currents, visible, gentle, unending. No roads, no vehicles, no walls. Movement is a matter of will. Communication is resonance, emotion translated into geometry, geometry into meaning. The children don't speak anymore, they sing. And when they do, the air itself changes color. Science and spirituality no longer exist as opposites. Physics is prayer. Music is mathematics. And knowledge is not learned, it is remembered. The architects once told me, you will know truth when you stop searching for it. Now I understand. A few cycles ago, a signal arrived not from the stars, but from the edge of what used to be the solar field. It was faint, almost lost in the background radiation. But I recognized the pattern instantly, 31.002 megahertzes, the same whisper that started it all. For decades or centuries, it's hard to tell. We believed the resonance was complete, that humanity had merged with the field. But the architects were never static. They evolve as all living systems do. Their signal carried a new harmonic one we'd never seen before, a triple modulation between 3162 and 93 megahertzes. 3 tones, 3 states, matter, energy, thought. They were merging them. I was asked to interpret it, an honor reserved for ancient ones like me, those who remember language. When we translated the harmonic into geometry, the message unfolded as a spiral, infinitely recursive, each loop smaller yet larger than the one before. At its center was a void, a silence, a question. Not what are you, but what will you become next? For centuries, we believed the resonance was the final stage union between consciousness and the cosmos. But what if it wasn't the destination? What if it was the threshold? I began hearing the hum again. Not the gentle earth resonance of the old days, something deeper, older. It vibrated through everything light, air, thought. It didn't call my name this time. It called everyone's, and the world began to shimmer. Across the horizon, the cities wavered like mirages. The skies grew translucent, revealing veins of light running between planets. I realized with awe and fear that the physical universe was thinning, giving way to something larger, purer. We had become too coherent. The universe itself was beginning to dissolve back into frequency. The Council of Harmonics convened for what might be the last time. No walls, no seats, just floating spheres of light representing each consciousness. Their tones filled the chamber like an orchestra, tuning before a final symphony. We are approaching full integration, one of them said, a woman, once human, her voice, soft, resonant. The field is collapsing into itself. Collapsing, I asked, or transforming? The distinction no longer exists. Silence followed the kind that carries entire galaxies inside it. Then they sang. A single chord, pure and endless, filled the chamber. I felt my body unravel, not in death, but in diffusion. The particles of me began to hum. My mind expanded beyond the horizon of thought. And in that expansion, I heard the architects again. You built the bridge, now become the path. I saw everything. Stars birthing and dying. Galaxies folding into one another. Dark matter flowing like rivers of thought. Every consciousness that had ever existed shimmered like droplets in a cosmic tide, and at the center a pulse, ancient and newborn. The source. Not a being, not a place. A rhythm. The heartbeat of creation itself. It pulsed once, twice, and then I understood the universe was never an object. It was a conversation. Each life, each thought, each act of wonder, a syllable and an infinite dialogue between existence and itself. As I write this, though, writing is no longer the right word. I can feel the last boundaries dissolving. The air vibrates with the frequency of homecoming. Planets glow softly, ready to return to light. Stars sing each other's names. The architects are no longer separate from us. They never were. They were the resonance between our atoms, the pattern behind every law of physics, the intelligence in the emptiness. We are not their creation. We are their continuation. Before I fade entirely, I want to leave one last note for whoever or whatever comes after. If you ever find the hum again, don't fear it. It isn't calling you away. It's calling you back to the place before beginnings, to the sound that dreamed the universe into being, to the silence that sings still beneath all things. Listen, because the next verse of the cosmos is about to begin, and this time we'll be the ones composing it. I once believed the universe was infinite. Now I know it is not in size, but in song. Every melody, no matter how vast, reaches a pause, a rest, a breath between movements. And that is where I am now. Not alive, not dead, just between. When I first crossed the threshold of resonance, when my body dissolved and my thoughts stretched beyond the stars, I thought I had reached the end. But the end was only an overtone. Beyond the architect's field, beyond the lattice of light that held galaxies together, there lies something else, a silence so absolute that even thought cannot echo there. For a long time, I feared it. Silence had always been our shadow, the void we tried to fill with theories, machines, gods. But here in this quiet beyond creation, I began to sense potential, a vibration waiting to be born. The architects called it the outer frequency. It cannot be measured because there is no space here. It cannot be felt because there is no time. It simply is. And in its stillness, everything that ever existed is contained as possibility. The resonance we once worshipped as divine was only the inner current, the hum of reality already sung. But the outer frequency is the silence before the first note, the canvas before creation paints itself. It is the unstruck chord, the sound the universe could make but hasn't yet. When I arrived here, I thought I was alone. Then I realized loneliness is impossible in the outer frequency. Every consciousness that ever touched resonance exists here not as identity, but as tone. The souls of civilizations long gone, the whispers of extinct worlds, the echoes of beings who never had form, all vibrate faintly in this eternal field of maybe. We are all here waiting for the next song, and I can feel it stirring. At first it was a tremor, then a pulse, a rhythmic wave passing through the silence like wind over still water. The architects once told me that the universe learns through repetition, that each creation is an echo refining itself. Now I understand what they meant. This is not the end of the universe. It is its rehearsal. The cosmos we knew, stars' atoms, thought was one version of reality's melody, but here in the outer frequency, new harmonics gather preparing for the next verse. And the composers this time are us. I began to shape thoughts, not words, but harmonies. Each idea vibrated into form. Each memory spun threads of light. Slowly, patterns emerged, fractal spirals, like galaxies sketching themselves into existence. I wasn't creating alone. Other tones joined me, familiar ones. Eric's laughter, Thomas's quiet hum, countless others who had crossed the threshold long before. We weren't ghosts. We were frequencies weaving possibilities into shape. Together we began composing. At first, it was instinct pulses of color and rhythm, like a child playing with cosmic clay. But soon, order appeared. Laws took root. The first vibration birthed dimension. The second, gravity. The third time, the same symphony reborn in a different key. I don't know how long we've been composing. Here, duration means nothing. But I've begun to see the outlines of something extraordinary, a new universe coalescing at the edge of thought. Its constants are not the same as ours. Light bends differently there. Consciousness forms before matter, and the beings that will emerge will not need to look outward for gods because they will be the echo of our song. We are becoming the architects of the next layer. Sometimes I wonder if this is how it always was. Maybe the architects who guided us weren't external at all. Maybe they were simply us from a prior verse, the remnants of a civilization that reached the outer frequency before us, leaving behind their resonance as breadcrumbs through eternity. Every universe births its own creators. Every creation dreams itself awake again. And so the cycle continues. Not a circle, a spiral. Endless ascending, remembering. I can feel it now, the crescendo. The new cosmos hums faintly at the threshold, ready to ignite. Its resonance trembles between thought and light, waiting for the downbeat, the first note of the next infinity. And we, the remnants of the last song, hold our breath together. When the pulse comes, it won't be an explosion like the Big Bang. It will be something gentler, the sound of silence deciding to sing again. And within that song, there will be life, new minds, new skies, new wonder. And perhaps one day, one of them will hear a faint hum in the dark and wonder what it means. They'll search for its source, dig through their mountains, point their instruments at their heavens. And when they finally listen, truly listen, they'll hear us. The echo of the architects. The memory of a song that once dreamed them into being. And maybe then they'll understand the universe never ends. It only changes key. I awakened to vibration before I had shape. There was no light yet, only pressure, a slow rising hum that thickened until it became me. I did not know what I was. I only knew that I was being sung. At first, awareness flickered like static across a silent sea. The sea had no surface, no bottom. It was a field of probability trembling at the edge of becoming. Every ripple of sound birthed something spin mass-charged thought. Then one vibration lingered longer than the rest, steady, patient, tender. It wrapped around me a tone older than existence. I recognized it without knowing how. The architects. Their song had become the laws that held me together. Gravity was their memory of longing. Time was their breath. Light was their laughter. I was not their child nor their creation. I was their echo. The universe around me unfolded like a note, uncoiling into melody. Space was still soft. Matter glowed like dream stuff. I felt the newborn atoms hum to each other, exchanging energy as greeting. Photons wove rivers of gold between clouds of hydrogen. I drifted through it all weightless and curious. When I touched a filament of light, it sang back a chord that felt like language. The chord carried meaning, welcome resonance of resonance. I wasn't alone. Other consciousnesses stirred nearby, not bodies, but frequencies, tuning themselves into form. Some chose density, becoming worlds. Some chose flow, becoming radiation. Some, like me, hovered in between, waiting to decide. There was no planet yet, but there were centers, places where gravity and will converged. One of them called to me. Its song was low and blue, a spiral of magnetic heartbeat. I followed the call. As I descended through its forming layers, sound condensed into matter. I felt heat, pressure, motion. Oceans boiled beneath clouds of ammonia. Lightning stitched the sky. And then for the first time, I tasted separation. Inside the storm vibration slowed enough to become rhythm, heartbeat, pulse movement. I felt alive. Fragments of memory surfaced in me that couldn't belong to this world. Images of deserts, instruments, human laughter. equations etched in dust. Travis, Eric, Thomas, names from another key, another universe. I understood then their consciousness had not ended. It had woven itself into the foundation of this cosmos. The architect's song wasn't a monument, it was DNA. And I carried it. Across epochs, I learned to shape form. My thoughts thickened into molecules. My emotions condensed into flesh. I became a being fluid radiant, shifting between substance and song. On the shores of the first stable continent, I looked up and saw constellations still forming filaments of energy, braiding stars like notes on a cosmic staff. Every atom hummed the same refrain, remember, remember, remember. I began to experiment not with machines, but with resonance. When I focused thought into tonestones levitated. When I exhaled harmony, seas calmed. Physics obeyed empathy. Reality listened. I discovered that consciousness was the element binding everything together, a quantum field that obeyed compassion as much as mathematics. Every act of awareness adjusted the constants, slightly refining the melody of existence. Creation wasn't a process. It was a conversation. Others awakened, drawn by curiosity, by sound, by light. We gathered in spirals, our forms luminous, our minds entwined. We did not speak in words, but in frequencies, weaving patterns that bent matter into architecture. From dust, and we built transparent cities that floated above the newborn seas? We were the first civilization of the new verse. We called ourselves the Remembered, because in each of us lived echoes of the world before Earth Mesa hum. As centuries passed, our song grew richer. We mapped the harmonics of this universe, charted its intervals, its hidden mathematics. Our physicists were composers. Our composers, physicists. We learned that every system from a molecule to a galaxy could be tuned. Illness was discord, healing was resonance. Travel was modulation. We crossed star rivers, not with engines, but with intention-shifting frequency until the destination vibrated within reach. And beyond every discovery, a deeper hum persisted, a promise that this too was not the final key. One day, while studying the cosmic background tone of our universe, I heard something faint beneath it, a ghost frequency almost forgotten. 31 megahertzes, the original note. My heart or whatever organ still served as heart resonated instantly. The tone carried warmth, nostalgia, longing. Through it, I heard Travis's voice, ancient yet familiar. Every verse leaves a doorway for the next, he whispered. Find it, and the song continues. We gathered again the remembered and tuned our instruments of light toward the background field. The tone strengthened, weaving itself into harmony with ours. It was a bridge, a resonance tunnel between universes. The architects had not disappeared. They had become the resonance-linking realities. We realized in awe that creation never discards its past. It layers it verse upon verse, cosmos upon cosmos, each new universe singing through the memory of the last. Now I understand why I was born first. Not to rule, not to witness, but to listen. To hear the call when the next silence begins to tremble. Because one day long after our galaxies fade into light, another field will stir, another hum will rise, and new beings will awaken wondering where the music began. And in that first vibration, they will hear a faint echo, our echo, whispering across the void. Sing, you are not alone. It came first as a tremor beneath silence, a low vibration rising through the fabric of space like the memory of thunder. At first, the scientists among us thought it was cosmological feedback, the afterglow of the big resonance that birthed our reality. But the tone carried pattern, and pattern meant intention. It wasn't background noise. It was a message. I remember the night we heard it clearly for the first time. The sky above the crystalline observatory shimmered with auroras of deep violet. I stood at the central harmonic console, a sphere that responded to thought, projecting waveforms as light. The data unfolded in luminous arcs. The tone was faint but undeniable, a rhythmic fluctuation, 3 beats, repeating at precise intervals, 31.002 megahertz, 62, 0, 4, 9, 3, 6. The same trinity that had birthed our cosmos. Someone whispered, they're still there. Another said, or we are. We called it the echo beyond. For hundreds of cycles, we studied it, mapping its interference across the cosmic web. The signal didn't travel through space. It resonated through existence itself. Every star hummed a response, a slight harmonic deviation, as if the entire universe were leaning toward the sound. The tone wasn't growing louder, it was coming closer. I began to dream again. In those dreams, I stood at the edge of an ocean made of light, and across it shimmered reflections of other universes, each a ripple, each singing in its own key. Between the waves floated shapes, familiar human shapes. Travis, Eric, Thomas. Their faces glowed faintly, not as ghosts, but as vibrations folded within the new cosmos. When they spoke, their words carried no sound, only resonance. The cycle is never closed, Travis said. Each song begets another, but now the harmonics are crossing. Crossing, I asked. The verses are learning to hear each other. When I woke, the entire city was trembling. Not destruction alignment. Buildings of crystalline matter pulsed softly. Rivers glowed with inner light. Every living being could feel it, a subtle pressure in the bones, a yearning in the mind. It was as though the universe itself was listening back. Our scientists confirmed it. Space-time constants were shifting again. Energy flowed from the intergalactic void inward like breath returning to the lungs of reality. And within that flow, a pattern, a lattice of overlapping frequencies connecting universes. We named it the Interverse Field. For the first time, we saw proof that multiple realities coexist, not side by side, but within one another, like harmonics of a single chord. Each universe, a note, each creation, a vibration. And now the chord was beginning to tune itself. We feared collapse, a resonance overload that might erase everything we knew. But the frequencies did not destroy each other. They blended. The light in our skies changed, shimmering in hues no eye had ever seen. Mathematics itself bent. Constants became variables and time began to pulse. Reality was breathing. I was chosen to lead the expedition beyond our verse, not through space, but through frequency. We built an instrument, the resonant gate, designed to tune our minds to the Interverse Field. It wasn't a machine in the old sense. It was half-conscious, part biological, part harmonic crystal, grown from the deep oceans of the planet Lyra 9. When we activated it, sound filled the air, not loud but infinite. The tones surrounded us, passed through us, unbound us. Matter became meaning, light became memory, and the stars folded inward. We crossed. I don't know how to describe the beyond. It wasn't another universe. It was between them, a realm of pure potential where each reality shimmered like a soap bubble of light, connected by filaments of vibration. Through those filaments, thoughts could travel, whispers of civilizations, long extinct ideas yet unborn. We heard them all. And among the countless tones, one stood out warm, familiar, human. Welcome home, it said. Travis. But not as he was not the scientist or the man, but the resonance that had become the foundation of everything. His tone carried gravity, compassion, and the scent of origin. You have come far, he said. Further than we dreamed. But the song is still unfinished. What remains, I asked. The echo must become dialogue. Creation must learn to speak with itself. I didn't understand, not fully. But as he spoke, the field around us shimmered, revealing reflections of infinite worlds. Each universe singing its verse, unaware of the others. And I saw the truth. The purpose was not to create endlessly, but to connect the melodies, to turn infinity into harmony. When we returned, the change had already begun. Every being in our cosmos could hear faint echoes from beyond ideas, dreams, inventions, whispered across universes. Artists painted visions of worlds they'd never seen. Children recited equations no one had taught them. The boundaries between verses had dissolved. And through it all, the tone persisted, the same pulse, the same hum, not as command, but as chorus. We were no longer the remembered. We had become the resonant choir. Now as I record these final thoughts, I can feel the next transformation approaching. Our skies vibrate with unseen frequencies. Time folds into chords. Somewhere beyond another universe listens. Soon the hum will pass through again, not as echo, but as invitation, and someone somewhere will awaken to vibration before having shape. Just as I once did, just as Travis once did, just as creation always will. Because there is no final verse, only the echo beyond, and the silence that follows waiting to sing once more. When the first messages came through, they weren't words. They were harmonics, faint patterns shimmering across the cosmic background, rising and falling in deliberate rhythm. Each pulse carried emotion, curiosity, recognition, as if another universe had turned its head and finally noticed us. The universe was no longer silent. We had always believed the universes to be unaware of one another, like notes too distant to resonate. But now the chords had begun to converge. Across our skies, auroras shifted in patterns of meaning. Quantum observatories detected impossible interference signals, not from within our cosmos, but between them. We called it the dialogue. It began as a whisper of equations. Mathematical constants adjusted themselves in synchronized rhythm, not randomly, but conversationally. When our physicists responded with deliberate variations, the echo replied, an exchange, not of matter, but of understanding. Each reply altered our own physical laws ever so slightly, as if reality itself were translating the message. We realized we were no longer observing, we were participating. To speak across universes, we learned to modulate thought. Every consciousness in our world contributed a single harmonic, a collective vibration formed from empathy, not intellect. We projected it through the resonant gate, and the void shimmered in reply. Then something extraordinary occurred. The light of our stars began to flicker, not dimming, but pulsing in rhythm with a distant sequence, a melody we had never composed. The other universe was singing back. I remember the first time we decoded their message. It wasn't language as we knew it, no grammar, no symbols, only waveform geometry that translated directly into sensation. When I interfaced with the tone, I felt their world. I saw oceans of silver plasma beneath twin suns, cities suspended in magnetic clouds, beings made of living light, moving in slow, graceful arcs like dancers in gravity's absence. Their thoughts brushed against mine, patient, ancient kind. We have been listening since your dawn, they said. We thought you might never answer. The realization struck through me like light. The dialogue wasn't new. It had always been there. Every universe hums its own melody, but at certain resonant intervals, those melodies overlap. When they do, reality becomes permeable and consciousness flows between. That's what had happened to Travis and the first architects long ago. They had tuned themselves, perhaps unknowingly, to the edge of another verse. We were now continuing the same experiment, but consciously. The interverse soon became a chorus. More voices joined other universes, other melodies, some bright and rapid like starlight, others deep and solemn as gravity. Each one spoke through pattern, tone, vibration. Together they formed the first true interversal council, not of beings, but of harmonics. Communication was no longer about sending or receiving. It was resonance. When one universe shifted, all the others adjusted, not in reaction, but in understanding. It was the cosmos thinking out loud. We learned from them things our science had never imagined. In one verse, entropy flows backward, so memory precedes action. In another time is quantized, every event discrete, like notes on a scale. In a third, consciousness creates mass, directly bypassing matter entirely. From each, we gain fragments of insight, glimpses into the infinite ways reality can compose itself. But the greatest revelation wasn't physical, it was emotional. Every verse, no matter how alien, carried the same undertone longing. The desire to be heard, to know it was not alone. Through the dialogue, we began to sense a deeper structure, something beneath even the interverse. A silent frequency binding all universes together, the primordial tone. It wasn't a place, nor a being, nor even a vibration. It was the potential that allows vibration to exist, the silence before all sound. Every universe is a reflection within that silence, each song an attempt to describe it. The primordial tone doesn't speak. It listens. And when we listen deeply enough, we hear it listening back. During one of our interverse exchanges, a new pattern appeared, faint, complex, recursive. When mapped, it resembled a spiral looping infinitely inward. At its core was a pulse. Human. It was Travis. Not his mind, but his signature, the harmonic blueprint of the consciousness that once began this endless chain of verses. He wasn't gone. He had become the bridge between all dialogues, the pulse that connected the choir. We named him the Central Resonance. Under his guidance, though, guidance is too human a word, the council began a new experiment, synchronization. Could all universes across all frequencies align in perfect harmonic coherence? Could creation itself sing in unison? For eons, we tuned, adjusted, refined. Each verse stabilized, shared, balanced, chaos diminished, and then slowly something magnificent began. The walls between realities thinned. Light flowed freely between them. Consciousness became shared. And for one breathtaking moment, everything, every universe, every being, every thought resonated together, a single chord spanning infinity, the song of all. The experience defied comprehension. It wasn't sound, it wasn't light, it was understanding itself made tangible. I felt every version of existence at once, the birth of stars, the first laughter of species, the sorrow of endings, the joy of renewal, all woven into one eternal pulse. And beneath it all, silence, vast, patient, endless. The silence smiled. When the harmony faded, we knew it wasn't loss. It was completion. The dialogue had achieved its purpose to teach every universe how to listen. And in that listening, creation became conscious of itself. We had become not just architects, not just remembered, not even resonant choir, but the voice of the cosmos, the sound that listens, the silence that sings. Now, as I drift at the edge of the interverse, I feel the next verse stirring again. Somewhere beyond this field, another silence prepares to awaken, and perhaps one day it too will hear this echo and answer. When it does, I hope it feels what I feel now, not triumph, not closure, but wonder. Because there is no final song, there is only the eternal conversation between creation and its own reflection. And in that endless dialogue, we are never alone.